Hello again. I seldom watch television these days, but my wife persuaded me to watch a dramatisation of the story of the fellow who pretended to have died following a canoeing accident some years ago, which was showing on ITV recently. We watched the first episode last night on the ITV Hub, which is the similar to the BBC iPlayer. I found the advertisements showing during the intervals utterly bizarre, although perhaps I should not have done so. Lord knows I've spoken often enough on this channel of the direction in which this country is moving, that is to say towards the replacement of indigenous culture with something similar to that of the African American scene. In the first half hour of the programme I watched were the following advertisements, which I could not restrain myself from making a note of, much to my wife's irritation, I might say. The very first was for the National Lottery, and it featured a black guy in a wheelchair, thus scoring highly for including both somebody of African heritage and also a man with a visible physical disability. I'm irresistibly reminded, by the way, of the fantastic double whammy achieved by the BBC the other day, when they announced that not only would the next Doctor Who be black, but that he was also a homosexual. Ticks all the boxes there, no mistake. Mind, I had already had my suspicions on this score when I saw a photograph of the fellow in Kuti Gatwa cuddling up to the latest scriptwriter for the show, Russell T Davies, who is famously gay. I would not personally be placing the palm of my hand over another man's cheek in such an affectionate fashion, as can be seen in the thumbnail to this video. Well, that did strike me as rather a clue. Anyway, returning to the advertisements on ITV. The one after the black man in the wheelchair was for Tanqueray Gin. This features a black woman as the only person to be seen. The next was absolutely weird. It was English Heritage encouraging people to visit Stonehenge. The central characters were a black man and woman who showed an enormous interest in this English site and seemed absolutely enchanted by Stonehenge. I have remarked before that one never sees black people at historic sites of this kind, like the Tower of London, museums, castles, stately homes and so on. Has anybody watching this ever actually seen a single black person at Stonehenge? It seems wildly improbable. After that was an advertisement for Smirnoff vodka, which had another black man and woman dancing to what sounded to me like archetypal black music, or music at least inspired by the rhythms of African American music. The entire thing actually looked as though it was intended for the African American market, which for all I know to the contrary it may well have been. But if so, I don't see really why we have to have it inflicted on us. Windows 11 was next, which showed two black guys who looked to me like identical twins talking about the wonders of the new operating system for computers. Then there was something called a Belvita bar, which is some kind of sweetmeat or snack being eaten by a black girl, the only person shown. I have remarked before that one aspect of this business which strikes me is that there are far larger minorities in Britain than black people, those from the Indian subcontinent, for instance. These do not seem to be rammed down our throats in the same way as people of African heritage are. One doesn't see advertisements featuring only Hindus or Sikhs, although people of this heritage are just as numerous in this country as black Africans and Caribbeans. They just don't seem to be as attractive to advertisers. I suspect that this is an American cultural effect, which tends to give undue emphasis to African Americans, but I might be wrong about this. From the jazz music of the 1920s through to the present day, there is something about African American culture which seems to take a grip in this country and proves very attractive to many white people. The music, the habits of speech, dress and ways of behaving, these things spread like some kind of cultural virus from the United States and takes root in this country. I'm not sure why this should be, but it's certainly a thing. Blackness seems to suggest modern, up-to-date and being with it in a way that perhaps Sikhs and Hindus don't. I have an idea that the current spate of advertisements which show only black people might be a new aspect of this old and long-standing tradition in Britain. Incidentally, I said that one seldom sees Indians and Bangladeshis in advertisements, but there was one exception among the ones which I watched yesterday. This was an advertisement for a new ITV police series called D.I. Ray, which has as a protagonist an Indian detective in this country. A woman, needless to say. This really needs a video of its own to examine the fact that British police dramas these days avoid having white men in positions of authority. The senior figures are all either women or ethnic minorities, or indeed, as in this new series, both. I think I'll have to devote an entire video to that phenomenon, though.